We are live, gentlemen.
I was getting all cocky because I didn't get here at 6:29 and 30 seconds. I was like, "Oh, I've got plenty of time."
Right. You showed up 2 minutes beforehand, and then got cookie on it.
I got here at 6:27 and 43 seconds, and I was feeling myself.
All
Wait,
right.
who's doing all that talking?
Yeah, there it is. Hey guys, it's good to see you again. Everyone, welcome to another round with me, your host, Jeff Johnson, your other host, Scott Kolins, and your third and mostest of the hostess, Stephen B. Jones.
I like that. I do like a hostess fruit pie.
Yeah. Oh, remember
hostess fruit pies? I love them. I remember them. I love the comic book ads for them. I think Sal Buscema drew one with the Hulk. I mean, that was basically
great art.
That was the comic book equivalent of when they cut away from like a sitcom in the 50s, and then they said, Lucy and I like to smoke Lucky Strikes. Bill O'Donnell, today I am returning, yes indeed, to sweet, delicious Mexican Coke. This is my second soda of the day. A second Mexican soda of the day. I had a delicious, I don't have it with me. There's like an apple cider soda that you can, it's like, tastes like apple cider and it tastes like soda. It's delicious.
That sounds crazy.
I'll bring it on. It's hella crazy, dude. Okay, Fantastic Four number 5. I'm sorry, I'm digressing.
It's all right. Scott, you have a Mexican Coke. I have a classic Bud Light.
I am still recovering.
Oh, right.
Does the Bud Light have a nickname like the Silver Bullet does for a Coors Light? I feel like it should.
I don't think it does.
Nothing nice.
It's not Mark Solomon. It's not Jarritos. It's I'm just going to look it up. If only there was some sort of device that would allow us to gain information that we don't have.
Right. All right, guys. So while Steve's looking that up, we're going to be talking tonight about the Fantastic Four Annual number 5. And there's a lot actually to talk about. Not only is it an amazing story with an incredible cast of characters and a crazy amount of action, I found out that some of the credits might even be wrong.
Yes. I think I don't know the story behind it. I think I first found out about this issue back when I worked on Batman the Animated Series, New Adventures, Superman, Batman Beyond, when I was working with the true just KIRBY gods of Bruce Timm and Glenn Murakami and Shane Glines and Butch Lukic and Darwin Cook and all those guys. And I think that's where I bought. I think me and Shane Glines used to just go a couple times a week. We would just haunt all of the comic shops in the San Fernando Valley and just buy cheap, beat up versions of KIRBY comics, just to be able to have the originals and look at the, so you could just see the inks. I think because do any of you guys remember what's your first exposure to KIRBY? I feel like that's a valid question in light of our discussion today.
That's an interesting question. I think I actually might have mine sitting right here.
This wasn't planned at home, folks. I know this will be hard for you to believe, but there's no script for another round.
You're right.
I think I had missed most of the earlier 60s to 70s stuff of his. I may have seen something that I was unaware of, but I remember that there was an older fan that was friends with my brother, and that fan told me when I was talking about, John Byrne's X-Men or George Perez's Titans or something like that. He's like, you need to look at Jack Kirby. And I went, Jack who? And I think he showed me or he told me about New Gods. But I was still like, pip.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, it's funny because we talked about this on the very first episode of Another Round. Those of you new to Another Round, please go back and watch our previous episodes, especially our first one.
They're all brilliant. In case you're
exactly.
But it turns out that, Kirby was my first exposure to comics. The two comics we talked about that day for me is Black Panther #2, which is when Kirby had returned to Marvel, and Avengers 158, in which Kirby drew the cover. And those and the Captain Americas and the Falcons that Kirby did when he first came back. That was my first big one. And there's that horrendous one. I wish we'd uploaded this image when Red Skull has like clawed out Cap's eyes or something.
Oh yeah.
And Cap's like, I'm blind, and there's like flames burning behind him. And I remember that one kind of gave me nightmares. I was like, and I remember when we were little kids, it'd be like, you'd insult your fellow 9-year-old in a way if you said that their art looked like Kirby, and yet, like, because you wanted it to look like John Byrne or George Perez, and yet I still found myself continually going back to Kirby again and again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I bought up almost all of Kirby's DC stuff right before he passed, when it was affordable, and as soon as Kirby did pass, I feel like the prices went up on everything.
Yep.
Probably.
I got lucky at a San Diego con. That's where I think this came in with some other stuff. I nailed about, I don't know, 50 issues of a whole stack of stuff between like issues 30 and 100 or something like that. Most of the run at a San Diego con for what was a pittance back then, and it was a couple years right before Jack passed away. And yeah, I shudder to think what I would have paid just a couple years later after the poor guy had gone away. Because it was totally like a reasonable price at that time.
Right.
For back issues anyway.
I can't remember my first issue of Kirby. I think it might have been a Fantastic Four. It might have even been like a Commandy. But I have this sitting close by my desk, and I look at it whenever this is one of the books that I will pull out and flip through and just get inspired by whatever panel pops up.
Yep.
So you've had that comic for over 40 years, Joe.
I've had this comic a very long time.
And it's in remarkably good shape.
Yeah.
It's the comics that are close at hand, I try and take care of. But like the it's the old school, like it's the littler ones that seem less precious that I've just dog-eared and traced out of and copied and drawn over in. Those are the worst. About
half of mine were just because I slept with them overnight.
Oh.
I'd sleep with them and roll on them or do whatever I was doing. They'd always be mangled the next morning.
Didn't you bend a Thor issue in half on our first episode?
Me? No, Scott. Yeah, Scott was treating them very shabbily.
Scott's pretty rough with his love.
I remember my dad sadly taught me this trick to put a piece of carbon paper behind an image on a paper, and then if you trace over the drawing with a ballpoint pen. And so there's many John Byrne X-Men and Marvel team-ups whose price I've significantly diminished in value because of my ballpoint pen drawing.
Yep.
Well, I mean, honestly, when we were collecting comics, it was before they were really, no one thought to I thought I would trade a comic. I never thought to sell a comic.
No. And Jones, just like your writing on it thing, I also had friends that showed me the silly putty trick. So you open a comic to an inside page, press silly putty or whatever onto it, and then you could peel it off and have the reverse image on the silly putty, which also means you were stealing it off the page, basically.
Right, pulling some of the ink off, yeah.
Speaking of trading comics, I was a remarkably bad businessman when it came to trading. I had no negotiating skills. If someone had a comic that I wanted, I would give them way too many. 6 Man Called Novas for that one Marvel team up. It's a deal, Like I think to the only issue of the John Byrne X-Men that I missed, I religiously went to 7-Eleven every week, but I missed the first appearance of Kitty Pryde, and I had to trade 6 George Perez Fantastic Fours to get it, and I did it happily, but still, anyway. All right, Fantastic Four annual number 5. This comic's not going to talk about itself.
Right.
So there's this cover, which is just gorgeous.
Fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, what's amazing to me is for that one, is
Yes.
is how many characters he fits in a cover.
Yeah.
And it's a neat sort of triangle composition, like from the tip of Psycho Man's left finger out to Black Panther.
Funny you should mention that, Steve.
Tell me.
If I just, where'd you go? Okay, there's
If I could
two
turn back
drawings I did. One was this one,
Nice.
I like that.
which helps break it down. And I loved it because all those shapes were either pointing towards Psycho Man, including his own hands, or they were like Medusa or Crystal, and they were wrapping around, helping with the circular effect of the whole group of them pushing in or aiming towards him. And I also...
Just enough back.
Yep.
Oh, yep.
And then I was doing your triangle thing where I was just showing all the different power triangles that were going on and where they were aimed and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I
And
feel like
that's one of the many reasons why this cover works.
And I think there's a big one, right, too. The big one is at the top of Psycho Man's finger, down to Black Panther, down to Human Torch's foot, and then,
right. Yep.
And then everybody that's excluded from it is still pointing into it as if they're the line at the bottom of an arrow,
Yep.
Which you indicated in there too. Just enough background in there to help sell the perspective, like some nice Kirby tech there behind everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let me switch back.
Do you think, guys, that because that's a lot of math being done, and I know that I would religiously figure that stuff out while I was drawing, and then I would manipulate arms and stuff to fit the graphic I was trying to, the algorithm I was trying to fit. Do you think Kirby did any of that, or he just did that shit on the fly?
By this point, it was definitely instinctual, I think.
Yeah, I suspect the thousands of pages Kirby had drawn since being a teenager. We all heard that he just started up in the left-hand side of the page and worked his way down. I do think it's pretty instinctual at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's a good
absolutely.
cover.
It really
let's
is.
move on to the next one because we could just... Exactly, Eric
there
Snyder,
forever.
you're right. Frank Giacoia does do the inks inside, but for some reason it's listed as being inked by Jolton Joe. And I think back when I worked with Bruce Timmon and all those guys, I'm pretty sure they knew the story, and I've completely forgotten as to why. But I feel like this is part of why I wanted to talk about this episode, this issue, because for those who love Joe Sinnott on Kirby's inks, and there are many people for whom the sun rises and sets only for Joe Sinnott, and I certainly respect Joe Sinnott and think he's great, but he's not my favorite Kirby inker. But if he is your favorite, you've got like over 50 issues to be able to look at, and so to try to pick which one you might talk about or which one you might not talk about, I think is pretty hard. And Mike Royer is many people's other favorite Kirby inker, and there's a very strong case to be made for that. But then again, what are you going to pick? The Demon, Commandy, like Fourth World stuff. Like there's so much great stuff that Royer did. And a lot of us have been lucky enough to meet Mike Royer at the cons. He's just a prince of a guy too. But for me, I think my favorite Kirby inker is Frank Giacoia. And probably my very favorite stuff of his, which would have been a faster episode for us to talk about, is some of the Tales of Suspense Captain America 8-page stories that he did. But I think this might be one of the few times that he did the FF. And this annual just has so much fucking shit in it. It's got the FF, it's got the Inhumans, it's got the Black Panther, it introduces the Psycho Man. And what I love about Giacoia's inks is, to me, they have the cleanliness and great structure of Sinnott, but they're not quite as slick. It's a little bit more organic. I feel like there's a little bit of graininess to the brush strokes. Like Sinnott stuff is so perfect. I'm pretty sure Sinnott did that cover, though I couldn't say for sure. But what makes me think that he might have is the tech in the background and the way Psycho Man's metallic stuff is inked. But if we go inside just a couple pages and you look how Giacoia is inking Psycho Man, I don't know. And we'll go through this thing, but I just like that slightly more organic feel and slightly less quote unquote perfect feel that Giacoy has. And to me, it looks the very best on Captain America, but it also just looks fantastic in this comic.
Well, one of the things I love about the story is, first off, I am not that good an eye at distinguishing between inkers. I can tell Vinny from others, but when it comes to Royer, and when I really sit down and study it, I can start to pick out the differences. But at first glance, I don't catch it. And so Cynic gets credit in the credits for this issue.
Yep.
And so we started, I don't know if the stories are true, but we started talking about how fast this issue was done. Right? So it was done, Scott,
like all of them, but yeah.
like a week.
If I was doing my math on it, and I don't remember, I want to say I've heard a story about this annual that it might have been done even faster than normal. But even if it wasn't, even if he was just doing his 4 or possibly 5 pages a day, the main 30-page story means he would have done it in just over a week.
It's mind-boggling. The quality of Kirby's art in just 3, 4, 5 pages a day. I love that splash. You just gotta love Stan too, because I just love in that crazy splash page, so much information is crammed in. The fact that if you read that title, you got to go divide and conquer, almost like Kirk. Just by putting those with those 2 little dots there, it's implied that it's not just divide and conquer, that there's a dramatic pause that needs to be taken there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, but also Stan had a good eye for that stuff, including, I mean, the letters that he worked with, but how they filled the space. I think that's still one of those like major things that editors and writers really don't pay enough attention to these days. They get very much caught up into, well, this is the balloon that the writer wanted, so they have to put that balloon in there just because it's the exact wording that they want. And I get that they want whatever natural dialogue and things to go on, but one of those great things I think that Stan really did was he went, oh, okay, Jack left me this much room. I'm going to generally try and fill that room as best as I can. Sometimes too much, sometimes too little, sure. But more often than not, they'd fill it, like, you know, and in the old-fashioned way that Reed's head is breaking the credit box or whatever, but it's part of filling the space. It makes it that whole one unseparated piece of the whole page that tells the story.
Yeah,
it's great.
for sure.
Yeah.
The lovely Susie Richards has suddenly fainted. Her husband Reed gently lifts her in his arms, and that's all the intro you're going to need.
I know, right? Well, I mean, what's funny about that is, like, so the pencils would be done, and then it would be sent out to the letterer, and then the letterer would do all that stuff. So clearly, Joe was supposed to ink this issue, but I just wonder if he's like, I can't ink a whole annual in a weekend. I can't do that.
Well, look,
I would lay odds that that's what it was, because I've heard of other stories where Joe would send something back going like, no, I can't, no.
All right, this splash page. All 3 of us, particularly you guys, would lack the restraint to not put the background in on this cover or on this splash page. And it's so great of just the square, the trapezoid gives us the perspective and the vanishing point. And then you got that hot magenta ground and with all the figures, but you didn't need it. You don't need it. You know what I mean? Like, it would have been too busy to have all that lettering and all that stuff and to have the background.
Well, not to skip around terribly, but in the same vein of this, I noticed the other part of the issue. And again, this is one of those things that I loved about Stan was that then Jack did this panel later on when everybody's pretty much assembled. And not only is, there's no background, there's no needed for it, everything, whatever's going on, and everybody gets a nice little balloon to say. But then Jack writes that whole paragraph on the side, basically saying, hey, true believer, look at this lineup. You'll never see another panel like this in your lives. And it's a good panel and everything, but he spent a whole block there filling it up, just saying, what a beautiful, panel this is, kind of a deal. And it's great.
Yeah.
Well, it is a strange mixture of, I guess, looking at this again, it reminds me, I would be so inclined if I were, this makes me want to draw the Fantastic Four for a pinup or something like that, but I forget that Jack does not make Ben Grimm very big.
No.
The Black Panther's taller than him.
Yeah, and just about as bulky. Yeah, there's a bunch of that stuff in these classic issues where, if when I drew the thing and did all that stuff and had my druthers about what was going on, he was always the biggest guy of the group. There was just no way I had to do it that way.
Absolutely.
Even though he's not as big as the Hulk or, I don't know, Sasquatch or whatever else going on. I always made Thing bigger than the others. In fact, when you mentioned that, there is, again, sorry to skip around, but when Thing and them here are unconscious almost.
What is this? This is madness.
Look, Alicia's nearly as big as him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, what is it?
He's like a big baby, a big rocky baby.
Component 5.
What's that?
Component 5.
Component 5. All right, let's get into that one.
All right, remember component 5.
All right, wait a
That's
minute. Back up to.
That's a great name for a MacGuffin.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the beginning of the story is Sue's not feeling well, and we don't know exactly why. We will find out later on.
Right.
But everybody's being a little bit concerned, except apparently Ben, who just feels like he's a fifth wheel in this whole thing. So he takes off to go see Alicia. Thank goodness he does.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we get our villain introduction, and it's a pretty good introduction.
Hey, just in case anyone was worried about, yeah, Psycho Man.
But I love, like, the first time we see this character, Kirby draws him from behind.
Kirby does that a lot.
Yeah, it's trippy, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's also one of the things that we could have mentioned too about the cover is most of these cover those poses for our main characters on there, except for Psycho Man. Most of them are not the heroic shot that's expected nowadays on a lot of comic book covers.
Mm-hmm.
They're not looking for a profile shot or look at Thing's angle and what he's doing down there. That isn't, a standard pose for what would be on a cover these days. But Kirby would do that all the time.
I think he's cowering in fear because of, Psycho Man's press the fear button.
True.
Right.
But I would, if I was handing in a cover for Marvel these days, I would feel this obligation to, yes, have him cowering, but still have a good shot of his face or, still show the broadness of his shoulders, even if he's trying to look cowering in fear, something so that you're, still advertising this book per se. And Jack wasn't like that on most of any of his covers. He was just like, oh, this is the scenario. I just threw that. If half the FF are seen from behind, then they're seen from behind.
Right. Yeah. So Bill asks, is it this before or after this man and this monster? You guys would know that.
I think this is after.
Okay.
I think I can double check, but while I check, go ahead. And I love this intro with the power.
This man, this monster is issue 51, so I think this comes after.
Well, one of the things I like about cool. So those panels, so it was empty. The room was empty before, right?
Yep.
And now we get the creepy shadows of all these scary things.
Yep.
On the
and
wall.
the guy even says here, I saw him press the fear button. I know what's going on. I know there's nothing here, but I can't help myself.
Yeah.
They seem real.
And then right out the window.
No.
Yeah, I know. Look at him. He's gone like, I don't know, 10 yards at least or something outside that window as he's dashed all the way through. And the next panel, Stan saves it for the censors at the time and says, well, he landed on the ledge below.
Right. I mean, that's a funny thing to throw. It's a funny thing to throw in there just to make sure it's like, okay, he's not dead. Everything's okay.
That's a great Kirby coming at you panel, just, with him falling out the window. And then I love this strange, unique, Psycho Man is particularly, someone in the comments said, Eric Snyder said, right, Psycho Man is a quintessentially Kirby design for sure.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And I love how
it's just about as complex as Galactus.
Yeah, I love how it looks from the back. I love how it looks from the front. And then even the profile is that interesting thing too. And it's also dimensional. Yep. I love the character designs. One guy looks kind of like the Mad Thinker. You got this cowboy guy. You got the beard guy. They're not just run-of-the-mill goons.
These three crazy humans are just, wacky in there.
Yeah.
He's got a gun that looks a little bit like a Luger on the next page.
And I looked up this monster is 66 and this annual 67. So, yep, this was after Man Monster.
Gotcha.
From now on, if you guys want to ask us questions that you could just easily look up on the internet yourself, feel free.
Yeah.
If we don't know it, we'll just look it up on the internet too. We're coming to you from the internet.
Now, another thing you should keep in mind is Jeff got his, I don't know about your copy, Steve, but my copy, hide that for a second.
Oh,
Look
wow.
at how off register the red is.
Oh yeah, mine too. That's
Trippy.
on the original.
Yep. And on the original, it was bad. Now I have the 75 reprint, and I think it's fixed because the plate itself wasn't probably wrong. It was just the printer at the time and how he printed it. And then it was so late or whatever. Yeah, it's normal here.
Oh, they fixed it?
Yeah. And that's in the 75 version of it. So the plate was probably right in the first place. It was just everything was off register when they printed it, and then they just didn't fix it with the book being as late as it was.
Right. So why do we think that book was late? What was the deal?
Oh, we don't have any proof about that one. I think I heard a story that this one might have been another one of those that Jack had to do pretty fast, like he did all of them.
Right.
But I mean, then the couple of mistakes we've spotted, scripting mistakes, printing errors, Joe's seemingly erroneous credit on here that we've all figured out. Those to me all hint at the fact that this might have been later than other issues, that it really would have been a thing that was dashed out as quick as possible.
Yeah.
But anyway, we got our little bit here. I love that headshot of Psycho Man. That's such a great, scary, monstrous face for
So
Kirby
creepy.
stuff.
Yeah.
So good. But then, ta-da!
Here we go. Nice big shot of them.
Yeah,
The
in
second-
case, I guess that's the first full reveal, right? We saw him back, we saw him in a close-up, we saw a profile, we saw more close-ups, but then this is like, just in case you have any questions,
Right.
Yep.
this is his hero shot. And he has a giant boombox of evil.
And again, like you were mentioning before, Steve, this is a great triangular layout.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right? Like with the Psycho Man being the right side of the triangle, and so
And
it's
all
like,
those people leading down to his feet, but then the guy's upper arm pointing back at Psycho Man's head. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's got a couple different shapes going on. There's a nice just arc starting at the guy's back hand that leads us right into the circle there too.
Yeah, I love
the
this
colors
headshot.
for this issue. Oh, you're right. It didn't say in here. And a lot
They
of times
don't-
they
they
didn't say
didn't-
back then.
They didn't listen back then. I just tried to go looky-loo around on the web to find out who colored it, and I can't find it.
Hmm.
All right, now we find
Maybe
ourselves at
someone will figure it out before we finish the show.
Alicia Masters' apartment. Sure, she's blind, but she still loves Ben Grimm.
A lot of texture there.
His boots are absolutely bitchin'. I mean, there's some crazy Kirby designs, but right. I mean, maybe it is more elaborate than Galactus's. There's a little bit less headdress going on, but there's a lot of headdress. There's a lot of Michael Golden. And then didn't Golden, the Psycho Man showed up in Micronauts, and I think Golden drew him.
Oh, that's right. Well, don't skip
on a-
ahead. We can
on
skip
a
ahead.
cover.
You know what's funny about that, Steve, is that one of the last shots of Psycho Man in the story, what the hell? We'll just go right there just because it's fun. I swear the way that it's drawn, and I wouldn't normally have ever thought of it this way, but hang on, I gotta find it.
I gotta draw this. This is definitely making me want to go on a
Here.
Kirby jag for a while.
Look at that profile shot in the second panel here of Psycho Man.
Amazing.
Look at the rendering and look at the face shapes and the lines on the face and the cheeks and everything else going on there, except
Very
for the
s-
wrinkles where Black Panther's holding him up. The rest of that stuff there, if I had seen another picture where it had Michael Golden's name underneath it that he'd drawn that Psycho Man, I'd have totally believed it. That looks like just like Golden there to me.
Love that Roman nose too. And whoever colored this issue, I love when Black Panther actually got colored this color instead of the dark blue.
Yes.
Yeah,
I totally preferred this gray or dark grays. I also really like Zipatone when people would put it on there, but yeah, the gray
Agreed.
itself was really cool.
we need to commission Dan to do a Black Panther with some Zipatone.
Sure.
Chop chop.
All right. So Alicia,
Back to the story.
beautiful background.
Where's our no prize to figure out how in the world this thing was delivered to Alicia's house?
Well,
You know, I actually thought of a no prize since we mentioned that before. What could have happened?
Mhm.
Psycho Man blames that first guy that he makes dive out the window. he blames that guy for where the fifth component had been erroneously delivered to, like you just deliver it somewhere.
Right.
Scott, you're a good writer, but not as good as these guys. It's not the fifth component; it's component 5.
You're right. I'm completely shown up
Right.
there. But when I read this like the 5th, 7th time or whatever, preparing for this, it popped in the back of my head going, "Oh, that guy knows that Alicia Masters is Thing's girlfriend, and he put it out there just to bring in the FF because he's trying to stop Psycho Man."
Well, I love
That's how you get no prize.
Alicia's the sculptress, but then what you love is that, and this is probably just because it's what Kirby loved to draw, but it actually makes sense of like, look, Alicia's able to love Ben because she doesn't sit around sculpting beautiful half-naked women. She sculpts monstrous, strong, look at the sculptures in her place.
I was about to say, look at that sculpture on the lower side, Jeff. The one on the bottom of panel 1 there.
That's not a Frank Frazetta love poster, like horse galloping man and woman in a loving embrace sculpture. She's basically sculpting stuff that's just like. And interestingly, I mean, she works with rocks, clay all the time. It's like for her to be in love with Ben Grimm, it's essentially like she's just made. It's like a statue come to life,
Totally. And also take a look at one of the things I think is
Bill.
She's blind. And take a look at the art that she has on the wall. Apart from the sculpture, that weird graphic, modern arty kind of thing back there.
Yeah, super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Who said this? Turn around, you orange monstrosity. Yuff.
Nice.
All right. So then we continue right on with, apparently in that second panel, there's the balloon over the box that says, starts to warn that there's somebody else in the room, and the Thing says that he thought the box was talking.
Right.
Who said that?
It's a reasonable expectation.
Blame the talking box.
Right.
Oh, it's a
then
great snap.
Just a scary Kirby monster.
Yep. So now we get
the millions.
The tussling here that's going on between Thing and...
Wait, Scott. Okay, so take a look at the Thing. I just noticed it. The monster the Thing is fighting, his back shapes. And then go back to the initial panel.
Yeah, it does look like him.
Similar, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Interesting. All right, keep going.
All right, so Thing has been hit with the fear button, and yet he's still diving in and sort of fighting the monster, but he's getting walloped. Oh, look, Jeff, they actually, this time they colored the back shapes on the green guy gray, like it was part of the
coloring mistake. Those should be
that they were breaking.
Right.
But yeah, the Thing is saying, I've never been trounced like this. Hulk couldn't throw me this way, blah, 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 blah.
It took my Sunday punch.
Oh, look at those. Ugh. Just those arms coming in and grabbing him. So good, monstrous, strong arms.
Yeah.
Can't black out. Gotta keep my head clear. Maybe if I yell, it's cauldron time.
Yep, there it is. Which is interesting because even in that first panel, though, look at how rocks disappear around him, like he's glowing or something's attacking him or something like that in that fashion. I guess it's just more for dramatic pause, but dude, look at those arms on the second panel.
Yeah.
Like look at his biceps or triceps in there in the shade and the shape of the rocks. So good.
Yeah, Frank did a really great job inking this.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Giacoya's inks too. I think Steve's spot on with that. He's one of my favorites, absolutely, for inking Kirby.
Thank you. All right, now the next page, just a spectacular, spectacular shot.
So after all that really intense close-up, bam, bam, plow, plow, then we back up and we see the whole thing, what's been going on.
Mm-hmm.
This is a total Jeff Johnson style down shot. Show everybody where they are. Show the ground plane.
Yeah.
So that show the damage to the room.
It's great. Show some more sculptures.
Yeah. And again, put everything in a focal point so that it all points back to Psycho Man.
In component 5.
Right. And then it's all like, oh, wait, none of that was happening. It was all happening in Ben's head.
Mm-hmm.
I forget. This might be the last page or panel where it's component 5. One of these panels now it changes in the scripting as we're going along.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this next panel is so great. Just look at that great Kirby floating crazy flying device.
Oh yeah.
What's great though is that doesn't look like something that Reed Richards would create. You know, like Kirby stuff always had the same shape language, but he does vary it. It's not like, you know, that doesn't look like a good guy vehicle. It looks like a bad guy vehicle. It's helpful.
That's a good point. It really does. Yeah.
I was about to say, if anything, it would make me more think of an AIM, flying car or whatever dice
exactly.
versus a good guy one. You're right.
Yeah, and there's a certain alien quality to it.
Yep.
Meanwhile, now we just happen to be Panther Island. We couldn't come up with why this couldn't get to Africa and Wakanda, so it just so happens that the Black Panther purchased an entire island in the Caribbean.
Right. Well, at least in these two panels, and I think maybe a little more another one, but mostly just right here, Panther actually gets a decent introduction. He's at least explained who he is, and we're told that he bought this island, so that's why he's here, and that they've realized that there's intruders. So at least his portion so far is being explained into the story, which is more than the other people get pretty soon.
That's true. That was just a great classic Kirby pose and a great classic Kirby Panther pose, him stalking on that tree. Yeah, this is.
Oh yeah.
People getting flung around willy-nilly by Medusa's hair.
Which is funny because Panther's still saying though, well, I'm not so easily ensnared. But you're being dragged across the panel there, buddy.
Yeah. He looks reasonably manly as he's being dragged across the.
I love that line that Kirby uses for Panther's thigh muscle.
Yeah.
His quadricep there. It's just so bold.
A female with scarlet tresses that obey her every whim.
Oops.
Thank you, Stan.
Landing on his hand, just one hand.
Yep.
Just defying gravity with his strength. Still, it's like, well, now he showed up, they pulled him in there, but he doesn't look like he's really in any kind of trouble at all. It looks like he's completely ready to go. Karnak's ready for action. I love that Karnak's entire back leg and Medusa's entire back leg and a lot of her back arms. You know, I just love the blacking them almost into silhouette, you know, for those shots, just to create that added level of depth.
Absolutely.
Because if you just squint your eyes and you just look at how Kirby uses black, and especially it's great on that whole page because it's just there's so much black on T'Challa's costume, you know. Then the thing that we never knew that we wanted, and what I love too is it's like, you know, in comics you don't have to do this as much, but Kirby does. You know, Karnak is setting up and cocking back his right arm, and you know why? Thank you.
Because of that.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, and so there's a great sense that he's like been cocking it back since last week, you know.
Right.
And then what's great is, I mean, you know, Jeff is a martial artist. What Black Panther's pass kind of works. Like he sidesteps Karnak's thing, and then he's, you know, his right arm could totally reach around and grab the back of Karnak's left arm from how it does. And the fact that he snared the left arm, it's pretty amazing.
And also, he's got the right, and it's a good wrestling pose. He's got the guy almost in crucifix.
Yeah, you're right. It's great.
Exactly what you want to do to Karnak, whose hands are so deadly.
Kirby, there's so much just X's in all of Kirby's poses, you know, like in one way or another.
Yeah, especially when you get to action. Yeah, absolutely.
And just the conflict that both of them are in is great. But again, T'Challa is almost all black as he just knocks Karnak right toward Cam.
Yeah.
And I like Medusa's ostensibly always in the fight, but her hair is just not enough to slow T'Challa down. Like her hair is always trying to get involved. T'Challa's like, I don't got time for this hair, woman.
Which is funny because it always seemed like she was somehow much more effective when she was in the was it Frightful Four? I thought she was much more of a serious villain or a serious combatant in the Frightful Four stuff, and I never found her. At least I think in a lot of these Kirby ones, she didn't seem like she had the same edge to her when she was in the Inhumans.
Good point.
Mm-hmm.
Sexism.
A bit.
Well,
Amazing.
I mean,
amazing.
it was just passing out at the beginning of the issue.
yeah, it was 60s.
That's true. Then run right into Black Bolt's thigh. One of the greatest Kirby designs of all time, Mr.
Yeah.
Bolt.
Well, and this is where we get to that point, Jeff, where we talked about before that the favorite Inhuman. My first thought, actually, when I was looking at this issue, to say my favorite Inhuman was Karnak, because Karnak is completely one of my faves, even though I love all of them. I love Triton and Gorgon and the whole slew of them. And then, of course, you beat me to the punch when you say Lockjaw.
Yeah, he's my favorite. I love
I love the heck out of Lockjaw.
But it's something I think that's so great about the Inhumans designs is that, like, you know, as a former character designer or occasional character designer, when you're doing a lineup, right, like the Inhumans is a really, really great lineup of no similar shapes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Absolutely.
say Fantastic Four, you know, people back Reed Richards and Johnny Storm, not that different. It's, you know, but it's like you have one super heroic, you know, body, which is Black Bolt, but because of the shapes on him, his gliders, his headdress, like he cuts a very interesting silhouette, both, you know, like the silhouettes within the costume and the silhouettes on the exterior of the costume thing.
Oh yeah.
And then you have beautiful Medusa, and then even when you had Crystal in it, even though you could argue that the two girls' body silhouettes are similar, but their hair and the rest of their silhouettes are so divergent that they're not, you know. And then Karnak is usually drawn smaller and his head's bigger, and right, Gorgon is bigger with his crazy legs, and you know, like Triton, let alone when you throw Lockjaw in there, it's a tremendous mixture of shapes, you know, and
Absolutely.
colors too.
An absolutely genius grouping of the right shapes and sizes and colors and everything else to be a very group. I mean, I don't know exactly how much Kirby would have set this up beforehand, or it was the impetus to put them together, but it really seems obvious in hindsight that he was organizing them to be their own book, to be their, you know, this next wave of Marvel Comics and stuff that were going to be out there, that the Inhumans were going to be that next book, or one of their next books, like Silver Surfer and everybody else.
Absolutely.
Epic.
Anyway, back to our peepers.
There he is. Nice.
Fly.
So I have to say, even though Lockjaw is an absolute favorite, but when it comes down to it, I just can't deny on Black Bolt. There's the power, the ruler, but that he's silent, all those different things, and his costume design is just freaking elegant. That Black Bolt's my favorite Inhuman.
Yeah, I mean, he has the superhero costume of a king, you know, and it's great. I mean, it's obviously extra good that they made T'Challa, you know, gray in this one, because otherwise he wouldn't contrast Black Bolt, you know, when you color him the blue one, so it works.
Absolutely.
You know, we have beautiful Kirby Rocks and Kirby Ocean coming up.
So now, well, we had this great introduction with T'Challa coming in and explaining that he bought that little island and all these things, and he was checking it out because he knew that there were strangers on there somewhere. But here are the Inhumans. They're really not explained. We get their names and we soon get their powers and whatnot, is what's going on with them.
Right.
But what they're doing here, or why they're here, or anything else.
Why are they on an island in the middle of the Caribbean? Why? There's no
We are not
reason
told.
for them to be there.
Except that we have like kind of implied that Black Bolt seems to be on the hunt. Like Black Bolt knows something bad is going on, and he's the one who's leading this whole foray. But are we told any of this? No.
Yeah.
I'd like to let you guys know, yeah, we will never have it explained. We will never know.
I'm just glad they're there.
Me too. Aren't we all?
Yeah. One of my favorite things is when the Stanley did this a lot, is like he has the narrator voice where he will explain a lot of stuff that happens in the panel. But then every once in a while, he'll just have a character narrate.
True. Yeah. He wherever it needs to. Black Bolt is the master of molecular energy. Then this next panel is just such a great. It's a flat shot, but that somehow is what makes it really good. It's just the fact that it just shows them matter of factly running across the water, and everyone's got a different kind of pose. Jeff, you just drew some poses very similar to this in our last week's episode.
The Flash, yeah. I was lucky enough to draw all these characters in a Fantastic Four miniseries I did a while ago. It was sort of a retro Fantastic Four thing.
Yep.
I really had a lot of fun with these guys, and I played a lot more with their sizes, I think.
Yeah.
Than Jack did.
Well, I feel like Jack laid all the groundwork, right? And then everyone that's come next has kind of pushed it farther to kind of go with what Jack implied, right? Like, oh, Karnak seems a little smaller and thinner, but his head seems bigger. Like, his head's pretty regular size in that running shot, but on the next set of panels, it definitely looks bigger than a regular head.
Right.
That's true, Mark Solomon. We should definitely call up Stan and Jack and give them a little bit of a hard time about Gorgons and Medusas. I think a Medusa is a kind of Gorgon. I mean, we'll have to.
I mean, that's a really good point. That's a very good point.
We should also give Stan some credit here, because out of all the other business has been going on, he does take this panel, though, to let us know that Gorgon and Triton are around, and it lays the groundwork, so when they appear later, we know how and why and where, kind of a thing.
Right.
Which is good.
Yeah.
The torch, then we share our friends in common. So I tell you this: if danger threatens, we share it together, and we shall defeat it together.
Right.
That's so funny. Wait, you mentioned the FF? I'm with you, pal. Let's go find danger. You mentioned my friend.
Yeah, right.
Now, one of my favorite panels in this entire issue. That Karnak panel is just amazing.
Yeah.
But it's so great.
Those lines. Oh.
He's running, but I love that setup shot too, right? Like they're basically Karnak's anticing in the wide shot. You know, he's battling, he's gathering his wits, he's focusing his power. Mm-hmm. And then the payoff for this anticipatory shot, there's basically two antics before this the great widening out of the next shot, you know, where he just karate chops the hell out of this
and
thing.
Similar to how I thought that one of those last panels with Psycho Man was Golden-esque in a way. I think that this shot here of Karnak is very much what Steve Rude would do as well.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, yes, exactly. You can see the Rude all over it.
That would be his version of, again, trying to do a Kirby and that stuff, but the line work and just the grace and beauty of it is just so good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I won't sit there forever.
All right.
It's a cack. You did it. You shattered the reef surface. That's a great, we had those two panels of setup to have this payoff. And then wait a minute, something's gone wrong. There's a shockwave.
And then that second panel, those zap lines are on there. That was one of the first times I really hadn't thought about it before, but checking on it for this show that I looked at those zap lines and I went, hey, that doesn't feel like Joe. Those they're way too organic and kind of scattered or natural feeling, almost a little bit sloppy, especially as compared to something that Joe would do. Joe's zap lines on there would have been way more slick.
That's true. It's truth.
But and we're implied here that not only was Karnak zapped, but we'll find out that the rest of them were as well when we come back.
Right.
But
that is one of the greatest pieces of Kirby tech ever. Just like a tiny little.
Yeah, that machine is outrageous. And also the green stuff in the background. There's so much great design back there.
Sue's totally pulling
another one in a minute, but that's just gorgeous.
Sue is totally pulling the Lieutenant Uhura, where she's ostensibly kind of being an assistant to read on this one. She's tabulating some sort of results, you know.
Right. She's looking for the Spockometer.
Yeah, she's participating. Yeah, she's checking the Krieger wave output.
Yeah.
But we get the big reveal for this one, and hey, I mean, this is an important turning point for the FF continuity, the books, everything going on.
This isn't a throwaway issue.
Is to find out that they're going to be. Oh, you know what?
You missed that. A baby.
Yeah, we missed the baby panel.
Hang on a second. Where are we at?
Was it just somewhere here near here?
Right, must you? They'll have to know sooner.
Oh, yep, 32 is missing. Oops.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, you're right. It went somewhere.
Oh,
well.
my bad.
That's all right. Again,
Spoiler alert, people at home, there's a baby. His
There's a
name's going to
baby
be
panel.
Franklin Richards.
and then we get these guys reveling in this great news and this giant turning point for the series, literally for the rest of the continuity of FF to come. This is these panels. This issue is a big change, because after this time, this is annual 5. Annual 6, I was telling Jeff before, is the Annihilus panel. And that's the one where Sue is now sick during her pregnancy because they're thinking there's something going on with the cosmic radiation between them that they've been imbued with, that's somehow killing her. And then Reed figures out that if he gets Annihilus's, what is it, a cosmic rod? What is it?
Yeah, that thing around his little neck.
Yeah.
Cosmic rod, yeah.
Reed decides that if he gets that thing, out of all the things in this universe or in the negative universe, that's going to be the thing that he's going to use to save Sue. But then it just continued on with
more of a zone, but yes.
Yeah, the negatives. Annihilus is one of my all-time favorite Kirby designs.
Oh, he's awesome.
He's remarkable. All right, so we have Ben Grimm just in the giant Ben Grimm happy mouth. He's lugging around Reed like a football. Got Johnny.
Well, look how big Reed is.
And having the flames be able to follow Johnny ends up being such a great design element and implicator of motion and speed too,
Connecting the whole image together. Absolutely.
It ties them all together.
Girls all hugging and holding hands in the background.
Yay.
Now you understand, Ben. Yeah, it's great.
And I love this first panel too. Look, things got him like benched up against the wall.
Kirby put the little bit of a pull on the costume, in those lines as he's pressing up, like it's not just as if there is a little give to the costume.
Yeah. But that's such a great thing to have happen, is like, I don't know, that to me it feels like a, 1940s, college thing to do, where guys would be holding other guys up against the wall as they're, cheering them on or something like that. That's just great. Now look at this one.
Look at
look at all that detail that's thrown inside that little room that Psycho Man's in.
And the depth, right? Just to make Psycho Man so small in there,
Yeah.
Well, it definitely, if you see that guy, the bald guy in the bottom left, and how it marches down towards Psycho Man.
Yep.
The cast shadow from the cowboy guy, adding that added level of depth.
It's crazy good. So then Psycho Man tells him here that he's hit all of them with the shockwave. Did he say which thing it was? If it was fear, I think it was fear.
I have stunned them with a simple shockwave, and now while they're dazed and uncertain, you may go and bring them to me.
But here it is on the panel 1 of this section right here. Component 4.
Right.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Whoopsie doodle.
And then him running out and dashing through all this stuff, going for the attack. I love the second panel of this sequence right here with just explaining that Black Bolt has blown away the outer wall or whatever it was as they're entering. How these guys aren't like crapping their pants, I don't know.
Love the great Kirby blacks on the shins and on the retreating thigh, and then so much of the third figure in black, and then the silhouettes and the explosion.
Absolutely.
There's so much story in this, and one of the things I think I'm always amazed by the older guys is how much they skip from panel to panel, how much time they jump.
Yep.
I don't feel that we do that as much anymore, and I feel like it doesn't allow us to tell as much story. Right.
I mean, it's wonderful in storyboarding and necessary, and still in storyboarding, we still need to always be editing and skipping. What's the Hitchcock quote? Like, film is life with the boring parts cut out.
Right.
But in comics particularly, there should be no boring parts.
And Kirby was a
Absolutely.
master of going from the most important moment to the most important moment from just the coolest moment you could think of.
But there's continuity too. He sets stuff up. It's like, when Sue passes out and in the first panel, and then when Reed's laying her down, her arm is still around him as she's being set down.
Mhm.
Johnny's pouring her water in the second panel, and then she's drinking the water in the third panel. So
Right.
we don't need to have him grab it, pour it, hand it to her, and then she drinks it. But having, you can. That's the thing that you can do in comics, is that you can, as long as you are setting things up, you can do it, and you don't have to do as much in between. But
so much
It's
of the
kinda
good
like key
storytelling
framing.
is implied.
Yeah, you're right, Scott. And yes, Jeff, it's definitely like keyframing, but it's you can still, there's so much more you can edit.
Mm.
Nice section,
This was
Scott.
the page we were. Sorry, this was the page we were just going over. So I just did a simple thing showing again the shapes, the movement, how Kirby was breaking it down, how things were looking, and you can just, to me, see the flow and the pointing and how it, how you're supposed to read this when it's less detailed with all the Kirby craziness going on. But it's a great page. And this was just, I picked one really, honestly, just at random. I just quickly grabbed one.
You could do another, diagram of this, of just like the top panel moving from the left to right into Psycho Man's head, which then leads us into the third panel as we swoop down from the ceiling and curve around with the figures onto the floor into the fourth panel. And then that one little white bit of line in the foreground,
The lightning or whatever, energy,
helps lead us into the fifth. Hi, Chihuahua. Good stuff.
So good, so good. All right, back where we were.
I love that shot. And so one of the things I always find.
Oh shit! 727, guys.
I know. We're just be last. One of the things I think is really fantastic about Kirby, and I know that we've talked about him a million times, is like these old guys set up so much of the visual language, right? Like this now in my mind, this is what it looks like when somebody gets zapped. That's how you draw it.
Yep.
And leaving out that big chunk of, so much of Black Bolt is so great, right? Like but his body's all where it's supposed to be. Next page.
Go.
All right, amazing. Last one, Medusa, and
also, we talk about are the main guys, Inhumans, Fantastic Four, Psycho Man. Like Kirby made up these three henchmen.
That's true. I mean, there's a little bit of this cowboy guy is a little bit reminiscent of both some of the, Two Gun Kid Colt stuff that he did in the past, and also who's the member of the Fourth World that's a little bit cowboyish?
Right. Yeah.
Forever People.
I'm not gonna remember his name.
Evocative.
The Forever one, the Forever People one, kind of blows it for me. But whenever I see this stuff going on, I just keep thinking of all the interviews where I've heard Kirby talking about the fact of stop making cowboy comic books because they always lost money. But apparently Goodman or somebody liked the cowboy characters and always wanted to keep putting a cowboy book out there. But supposedly Kirby was always against it, saying that they always lost money. So it's just funny that he would keep throwing in this cowboy motif at various times with the.
He spent 10 years drawing cowboys. Maybe he just, it's just stuck in there.
He just get pouring out of his hand.
Yep.
Oh, look at that gun.
So good.
I mean, that guy's face looks a lot like the Mad Thinkers, right? Is that
For sure, yeah.
And the hair,
The previous panel was great too. Just the forward Kirby pose of that cowboy guy and his leg being all black, and then Karnak being in that amazing jumping pose where his underarm is all black, and Panther jumping. This one's amazing for the same reason. Guy's shooting some kind of crazy missile thing. That is such a great T'Challa pose. All that Kirby tech in there.
Yeah.
All that black on the parts, on the parts of the figure that are farther away, a lot more silhouette.
And you never know how this stuff fits into stuff later. When I saw this now, I went, I wonder if this was like a forerunner moment when Kirby made these heat-seeking missiles and how he was using them, kind of like the Torch's flame trail, that he would use the visualness of it going in there in that kind of 60s style but it made me think of Darkseid's Omega beams.
I was just thinking the exact same thing.
So, it's like pieces of this fall together, so then he makes something even grander later with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That could be complete, bullshit, but
nothing gets thrown away.
Right, nothing gets thrown away, absolutely.
Panther. Panther does the equivalent of getting your heat-seeking missile to go to the hotter thing.
But why is he next to a washing machine?
Listen, everyone's got to get the dirt out.
So great and so clear that T'Challa is jumping behind him by putting in that little action line there. That's almost
the swoop, yeah.
The animation equivalent of drawing a motion arrow.
Absolutely. And the lariat too definitely shows the motion.
Yeah, classic Karnak jumping right through a flaming electric lariat.
Oh, and Eric, you're completely right. The texture on the water was amazing, but Jones got into that a little bit.
Yeah,
just barely.
Just a little.
Amazing. I mean, Karnak just does an incredible foot sweep that upends this guy. That's just it's incredible. Then we get a great Kirby gun coming at you as Black Bolt's recovering his wits.
Which, like you were saying before, Steve, that's a setup with it. Both
exactly. Yeah. There. He's caught
so that the next one, pow.
But laters. Wee. And again, I mean, so many amazing panels that Kirby's just doing it like a regular size that if people were trying to evoke Kirby or do some of the stuff now, this would still be like a whole page practically.
Right.
Yep. I don't think that was even a third of a page, was it?
No, it was just the middle section. Great close-ups.
Yeah, almost a third of a page, yeah.
Mr. Psycho.
Yep. With the sides of his head erroneously colored purple on the panel 1 here.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess, they thought it was the background and it should have been green, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, everybody was doing this issue in a hurry.
I'm sure they absolutely were.
That I think, by the way, that machine.
Incredible.
It might be one of the great. I mean, there are so many great Kirby machines, but that one's one of my favorites.
Is that one in How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
No, maybe it's. But I feel like there's a panel similar to it. It's broken down, but yeah, that's incredible.
Well, this is why I think so. It was Component 5 early on, but I think it makes more sense that it's Component 4.
It certainly does now.
Why do you say that, Jeff?
Because there's four.
There's 4 cubes.
Yeah. What's also interesting to me about this is that something of the randomness of it or whatever you want to say, but whether it was 5 or here 4, but when Psycho Man has his device, there's only the 3 buttons.
There's only the 3.
So when he's trying to use his mind ray doing stuff, is this like the 4th button? Is that what he's trying to say? That there were 3 buttons on the small device? So this one has it's 1 louder?
There's always, it can always be 1 louder, Scott. You can always go to 11.
And like all of Kirby's tech, it's always just based ultimately on basic, simple shapes that he then makes really complicated, but because his perspective is correct, it just sells the.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as often he usually does like something like this panel 1 where the villain's got his giant device, but he's aiming the whole thing and looking almost like he's in the cockpit and the crosshairs, getting it all aimed up so he can fire it. It's great. Super cool.
Great Black Bolt coming at you shot.
I love that flying pose.
But then he stops. Black Bolt has halted.
Once again,
great shot. I love that. I love that bar of black on the bottom and around the top, and this, like the way Kirby spots blacks in his backgrounds always pop out the figures and create more depth.
Well, and here it kind of makes it claustrophobic. It makes it a really small area suddenly that they're in, that they're cramped in.
Hmm.
They feel very boxed in to me.
Right. And then,
Until, of course, the bright yellow flash comes with Lockjaw bringing the rest of the parade.
Mm-hmm.
yippee!
Poor
What I love
Lockjaw.
about that moment is the Torch is surprised by Medusa
Oh,
and the humans. Where did they think they were going? Right,
You're right. He didn't know.
like, but he's with Lockjaw and Triton, two Inhumans. What did he think was happening?
Well, like you said, Jeff, sometimes the characters have to say it can't all be captions.
Agreed. No, I find that really amazing, and I know it's not something that really happens much in comics anymore. The narrator does not just float from character to character, which I think is a sad thing.
These are these are tough lines to say. I remember I was in some play in college where I had to say the equivalent kind of line where it's like in Old English, someone had been stabbed and was lying on the ground. I think my line was "How?" question on the ground question. You know, like in Old English, and I was like, I had the hardest time coming in. How on the ground? You know, where it's like, well, clearly he's on the ground. He's right there. You know.
Yeah. Or my famous Shakespeare line, "I am undone. I am undone."
Exactly. All right.
So here we go. Lockjaw's only other appearance in this issue. This is it, folks.
Look how wide is Lockjaw yawning?
It almost looks like
He's going to eat Johnny.
It looks like he's vomiting them out, like that they had to ride inside his stomach.
And once again, the Thing is not that much bigger than Johnny.
Not at all.
No.
What do you say, Torchy? Let's make like heroes.
Yeah.
And then basically the shot that we were referring to earlier, it's essentially the Michael Bay right stuff, like heroes walking heroically toward cam shot.
God, that's such a good shot. When you're a kid, I mean, I know that comics are for everybody, but when you're a kid and you see this shot, it's just overwhelming.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Steve. It is like the slow-mo.
Yeah, walking toward cam.
Yeah.
Everyone's doing something character appropriate. Karnak's walking forward as if he's going to just start karate chopping whoever's in front of him.
And now we think we know where this story's going. Yes, we're going to fight the Psycho Man. Sure, that's what we're going to...
No,
Hey, what the...
Yellow Hose Beast of Hell. That's a real Yancey Street reject if I ever seen one.
I love those. Kirby could come.
Ben's dialogue is always the best.
Oh, yeah.
Nice going there, Bolty. That ought to make him holler, Uncle.
What a weird design.
Yeah. Stretchy thing. But look at that great panel of Black Bolt being wrapped up and everything. So good.
Well, we ain't going to die of boredom.
Brock.
Oh.
Yeah, exactly.
Get in there, Triton. Use those powerful quadriceps.
Yep. But it's great because even he's in here. He goes, no, my power may not be equal to yours or to match the rest of yours, but I have to do my share. Even if I'm crushed, it may
making you priceless time.
These guys are heroes.
You damn straight. Oh,
This issue is so verbose.
Thank you, Eric Snyder. Yes, that's right. Seraphan is the cowboy type member of the Forever People.
Yes,
Well
thank
done.
you. Exactly.
Then Thing swinging him around. That's amazing. Karnak sensing for weaknesses. Another amazing Karnak setup panel.
I love that third panel here. Yes.
Right toward Cam, but he manages to do a different take on it. What's still an upshot, but just by putting the hand right in the foreground, and then another great payoff.
Mm-hmm.
But then, oh no!
My hand.
Karnak is so dramatic.
Yeah.
He's like a soccer player.
Medusa's hair just getting in the way, causing more trouble than it can. Then just incredible.
There's some tech for you.
And another great, having Psycho Man be within the circle and then the Black Panther's shadow.
Yeah. One of the things that Kirby never does is just have a straightforward square view screen.
Nope.
That's true. That is true.
No, they're always like these.
Segment's
images.
using the most complicated remote control ever.
Why did we get a red card? What did we do?
Oh, because I got the soccer thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
This great upshot of Psycho Man's face, the tilting back, like we're not just keep seeing the same version of the shot. Then we have something that looks a little bit like Blastar.
I was just gonna say that, yeah. Yeah.
Do a little hand-to-hand, get some Black Panther time here.
Amazing.
I would love to have the cojones someday
to just draw a floating fist. Like I dare you. I dare you.
I mean, there's gotta be. I mean, he pulls it off, but it's so ballsy.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
Now Gorgon just happens to be in a crazy little hang glider with an amazing.
I love his flying apparatus. I think I've gotten to draw that thing once or twice, or whatever. I love that thing. It's so cool.
It's very cool.
So lucky. It's sort of a precursor of Orion's crazy space glider.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And we get a little bit of explanation of kind of what's going on here. At least we get that crystalline-looking house, something or other that's going on there, so that we know that the Inhumans seem to be sort of living here, although it doesn't look much like the island. But anyway, yeah, he's in. And like Jeff had mentioned, that Gorgon looks over and sees the glass bridge or whatever that Black Bolt made, and Gorgon's like, "Hey, that's something Black Bolt would make." I'm going over here now.
Black Bolt's just constantly making these things everywhere.
All right, guys. I think. All right, we might just have to come back at some point and do the second half of this thing.
All right, because there's still a ton. We still have the rest. All right, because we've gone over an hour. All right, so let's cut this into part 2.
I think we'll do something maybe different next.
I know, but still, Scott, we still have the rest of this episode, the pinups, and the Silver Surfer story.
Right.
I do.
And I have deadlines and some Dungeons and Dragons on my schedule tonight. I have a full day of nerddom, drawing cartoons, talking about comic books, and then playing Dungeons and Dragons.
All right. Fine. All right.
Oh my God, I'm let down.
Well, so everyone be excited. Next week we'll come back and do the second half of the annual.
We have our first part 2.
Right. Or we might fit in something else to really build the anticipation.
Oh, sure. Like a fill-in.
Maybe we do
a fill-in for the fill-in.
Yeah. Maybe we talk about Flash Gordon, or we're not talking about Hard Target 2. There's guilty pleasures, and then there's pleasures for.
Listen, someday we'll talk about Hard Target 2.
Okay.
See, Bill says
2025. We'll talk about Hard Target 2.
Listen, you watch Hard Target 2 before you make any statements about Hard Target 2.
That is fair. That is fair. All right. I'm open to 2023.
All right, gentlemen. That was very fun.
I don't know.
Sorry for Scottus Interruptus, but I have a bunch of animation professionals that we're all going to have on the show, waiting on another Zoom.
All right. Let's play some music. See you guys next time. And I can't wait. I'm really excited about part 2.
Save the King.
What's going to happen?
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Come back. Don't forget. Come back.
Watch another round and go watch the Hard Target 2.
Listen, you and I are going to have words.
No, I'm telling people we should all get them to watch it.
Okay. Good night, everybody.